Hello YouTube and welcome to the DAT Slayer. This is a study guide that I made based off of everything that I did to get a 26 on the DAT. So what I'm about to show you is going to help you prepare for the dental admissions test. So let's dive right in. We're going to talk about the timing and schedule and important dates for the dental admissions test. We're going to talk about the scoring, and then specific study materials, study strategies, and then conclude. So, as our friend Boromir would tell you, one does not simply slay the DAT. And it starts off with a lot of study time. A lot of schools will say that their students studied roughly 300 to 400 hours, or about 2 months is a common study period that people take. And so what I would recommend you do is study full time, meaning 6 to 8 hours a day for 5 to 6 days a week. And yes, it is as painful as it sounds, but you actually get to be used to it after a while, and it becomes a challenge for you in kind of a good competitive way. At least it was for me. So what I would recommend you do is take work off, because if you can get a higher score, then you'll have cheaper school options. You'll have more school options and hopefully cheaper ones with potential scholarships. And so you'll save more money in the long run than if you just work your low-paying job that's before you can actually become a dentist. If you can't do that, which a lot of people can't, I'd recommend you work under 10 hours a week. Just be careful, because if you try to work a lot and study at the same time, you're going to be stretching out your study time, and it's harder to retain information if you're going beyond about 2 months of studying. So some important dates. A lot of people usually take the dental admissions test in the summer, so this is kind of what this is based off of. So for January and February, you want to register for the dent pin, and I will provide these links in the details below this video, so don't worry about that. This is where you should end up, and the earlier you do this, the better, because it does take some time to process that before you can get things rolling with your exam. I would also recommend you purchase and start practicing Crack the DAT, the PAT specifically, periodically. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but this you can use a little bit earlier than most of your other study materials. Then for March and April, you want to register for the dental admissions test and schedule your exam date here. And you should end up on this page to apply to take the dental admissions test. And during this time period, you can also purchase Top Score Pro. And I would just recommend you take a practice dental admissions test before you start studying at all, just to get a good feel for it, and also to kind of motivate you to study hard, because you'll realize that you don't know a lot of the material. Then in early June, as soon as this becomes available, you'll want to open and submit your application for dental school. And I'd recommend you be working on this long before you're able to submit it. It'll save you time and stress in June when you're trying to study for the test at the same time. And also, it takes a few weeks for your application to be processed before it's sent to dental schools. So the sooner you get that done, the better, because you want to be at the top of that pile as soon as they start reviewing applications. So by the end of June or the beginning or middle of July, you'll want to take the dental admissions test. The middle of July being the latest. That gives you roughly May and June, maybe a little bit of July to study. And then after the test, you can actually add more dental schools to your already submitted application. So I'd recommend maybe just put very few schools on your application to begin with, that you're actually submitting the application to. Because say you get a super high score on the test, you're not going to need to apply to as many as somebody who gets a less competitive score. And that might save you money in the long run. So once your application is submitted and processed, if you add dental schools right after that, they will receive your application the next day. I did this actually for Ohio State, and they received it the next day, and that's the school I ended up going to. So I recommend waiting to know your DAT score before you decide how many schools you want to apply to. Decide how picky you want to be. Finally, you just want to have your entire application complete with your DAT score and all before August. This is a must because it increases your chances of an interview. Often schools will invite you to be interviewed at the end of July is when they start. And so your DAT scores take a few weeks to show up. That's why I say, the middle of July should be roughly the latest when you take the test. So for what I did as far as studying, my daily schedule would be to wake up, exercise, eat a hearty breakfast so that I'm feeling energized and have the fuel I need to study all day. And then between 8 and 9:30, I was pretty lenient on this. Some days I did great. Other days, I had fun the night before and slept in a little bit. But I would arrive at this library. I'd recommend you definitely go to a place where there's the least amount of distractions. Natural lighting helps. And a good study spot that you can go to. I like to take snacks and just instead of doing a long lunch, I would just take snacks and eat those throughout the day. I also took a couple study breaks to relax or use the restroom, get up, walk around. Sometimes they were extra long breaks, just depending on what you need. And then between 5 and 6 p.m., or even later, when you get very close to taking the exam, you might go longer on those days. You'll stop studying and then just relax. Don't think about anything dental admissions test related the rest of the day. And just remember the most important thing is quality, not quantity. So some days your brain might be fried. And this definitely happened for me. I might have gone home at 1 o'clock or 2 certain days. Just call it a day. But I would recommend you don't make that a habit because some other days you may be going strong at 5 p.m. and decide you want to take it even longer. So as far as study time, I was shown a kind of a graph like this minus the elephant. And I liked it a lot. And basically, everybody's going to do roughly this much study time to get you to about a 19. But if you want to get your score higher than that, it's going to take you a whole lot more studying to raise your score each point because it is based on a curve, as you can see here. And basically the average nationally is roughly a 17.5. So that means that a 19 or a 20 is a pretty competitive score in most dental schools' eyes. And that is the average score of accepted students. And then if you get above a 20, that's the goal that you want. And that's what I'm here to help you do, is to get above a 20, get that as high as possible to increase your chances of being accepted to the schools that you want to. So in part 2 of the DAT Slayer, we will cover study materials, specifically what you should study and how you should study them.